Now the story has hit the start of its true eldritch storyline. Lovecraft gives a far more detailed description than is his usual fare, as a scientist describes an old one in great detail for a report to go to the newspapers. After landing in Antarctica, a second team went off on a side exploration, making the earth-shattering discovery that enables the description. In part 3, we hear the details of the cave they discovered and its terrifying contents. If you want to hear more, please click like, subscribing, clicking the bell, then all will let you know when a new episode releases. Let us know what you liked and what you want to see more of in the comments. You can even join us on Patreon. For now though, it's time to enter the Cave of Chronicles. They had struck a cave. Early in the boring, the sandstone had given place to a vein of Comanchean limestone, full of minute fossil cephalopods, corals, echini and spieffera, and with occasional suggestions of silica sponges and marine vertebrate bones, the latter probably of teleost, sharks and ganoids. This in itself was important enough, as affording the first vertebrate fossils the expedition had yet secured. But when, shortly afterwards, the drill head dropped through the stratum into an apparent vacancy, a wholly new and doubly intense wave of excitement spread among the excavators. A good-sized blast had laid open the subterranean secret, and now, through a jagged aperture, perhaps 5 feet across and 3 feet thick, there yawned before the avid searchers a section of shallow limestone, hollowing, worn more than 50 million years ago by the trickling groundwaters of a bygone tropic world. The hollowed layer was not more than 7 or 8 feet deep, but extended off indefinitely in all directions, and had a fresh, slightly moving air which suggested its membership in an extensive subterranean system. Its roof and floor were abundantly equipped with large stalactites and stalagmites, some of which met in columnar form, but important above all else was the vast deposit of shells and bones which in places nearly choked the passage, washed down from unknown jungles of Mesozoic tree ferns and fungi, and forests of tertiary cycads, fan palms and primitive angiosperms. This osseous medley contained representatives of more Cretaceous, Eocene and other animal species than the greatest paleontologist could have counted or classified in a year. Mollusks, crustacean, armour, fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds and early mammals, great and small, known and unknown. No wonder Gedney ran back to the camp shouting, and no wonder everyone else dropped work and rushed headlong through the biting cold to where the tall derrick marked a newfound gateway to secrets of inner earth and vanished eons. When Lake had satisfied the first keen edge of his curiosity, he scribbled a message in his notebook and had young Moulton run back to camp to dispatch it by wireless. This was my first word of the discovery, and it told of the identification of early shells, bones of ganoids and plachyderms, remnants of labyrinthodonta and trachoidea, great mosasaur skull fragments, dinosaur vertebrae and armor plates, pterodactyl teeth and wing bones, Archaeopteryx debris, Miocene shark's teeth, primitive bird skulls and other bones of archaic mammals such as Paleotheres, Zyodons, Echophi, Odrons and Titanoderidae. There was nothing as recent as mastodon, elephant, true camel, deer or bovine animal. Hence, Lake concluded that the last deposits had occurred during the Oligocene age, and that the hallowed stratum had lain in its present dried, dead and inaccessible state for at least 30 million years. On the other hand, the prevalence of very early life forms was singular in the highest degree. Though the limestone formation was, on the evidence of such typical embedded fossils as ventriculites, positively and unmistakable Comanchean, and not a particle earlier, the free fragments in the hollow space included a surprising portion of organisms hitherto considered as peculiar to far older periods. Even rudimentary fishes, mollusks and corals as remote as the Silurian or Ordovician. The inevitable inference was that in this part of the world there had been a remarkable and unique degree of continuity between the life of over 300 million years ago and that of only 30 million years ago. How far this continuity had extended beyond the Oligocene age, where the cavern was closed, was of course past all speculation. In any event, the coming of the frightful ice in the Paleocene, some 500,000 years ago, a mere yesterday as compared with the age of this cavity, must have put an end to any of the primeval forms which had locally managed to outlive their common terms. Lake was not content to let his first message stand, but had another bulletin written and dispatched across the snow to the camp before Moulton could get back. After that, Moulton stayed at the wireless in one of the planes, transmitting to me and to the Arkham for relaying to the outside world the frequent postscripts which Lake sent him by a succession of messengers. Those who followed the newspapers will remember the excitement created among men of science by that afternoon's reports which have finally led, after all these years, to the organisation of that very Starkweather Moor expedition, which I am so anxious to dissuade from its purposes. I had better give the messages literally as Lake sent them, and as our base operator, McTeague, translated them from his pencil shorthand. Fowler makes the discovery of highest importance in sandstone and limestone fragments from blasts. Several distinct triangular striated prints like those from Archean slate, proving that source survived from over 600 million years ago to Comanchean times without more than moderate morphological changes and decrease in average size. Comanchean prints apparently more primitive or decadent, if anything, than older ones. Emphasize importance of discovery in press. Will mean to biology what Einstein has meant to mathematics and physics. Joins up with my previous work and amplifies conclusions. Appears to indicate, as I suspected, that Earth has seen whole cycle or cycles of organic life before known one that begins with the Archaeozoic cells, was evolved and specialized not later than 1,000 million years ago, when planet was young and recently uninhabitable for any life forms of normal protoplasmic structure. Question arises when, where and how development took place. Later. Examining certain skeletal fragments of large land and marine saurians and primitive mammals. Find singular local wounds or injuries to bony structure, not attributed to any known predatory or carnivorous animal of any period. Of two sorts, straight penetrant bores and apparently hacking incisions. One or two cases of cleanly severed bones. Not many specimens affected. Am sending to camp for electric torches. Will extend search area underground by hacking away stalactites. Still later. Have found peculiar soapstone fragments about 6 inches across and half an inch and half thick, wholly unlike any visible local formation. Greenish, but no evidence to place its period. Has curious smoothness and regularity. Shaped like 5-pointed star with tips broken off and signs of other cleavage at inward angles and in center of surface. Small smooth depression in center of unbroken surface arouses much curiosity as to the source of weathering, probably some freak of water action. Carroll with magnifier thinks he can make out additional markings of geologic significance. Groups of tiny dots in regular patterns. Dogs growing uneasy as we work and seem to hate this soapstone. Must see if it has any peculiar odour. Will report again when Mills gets back with light and we start on underground area. 10:15 p.m. Important discovery. Orendorff and Watkins working underground at 9:45 with light found monstrous barrel-shaped fossils of wholly unknown nature, probably vegetable, unless overgrown specimen of unknown marine radiata. Tissue evidently preserved by mineral salts. Tough as leather, but astonishing flexibility retained in places. Marks of broken off parts at ends and around sides. 6 feet end to end, 3 5/10 feet central diameter, tapering to 1 foot at each end. Like a barrel with 5 bulging ridges in place of staves. Lateral breakages as of thinnish stalks are at equator in middle of these ridges. In furrows between ridges are curious growths, comb or wings that fold up and spread out like fans. All greatly damaged but one, which gives almost 7-foot wing spread. Arrangement reminds one of certain monsters of primal myth, especially fabled elder things in Necronomicon. These wings seem to be membranous, stretched out on framework of glandular tubing. Apparently minute orifices in frame tubing at wingtips. Ends of body shriveled, giving no clue to interior or what has been broken off there. Must dissect when we get back to camp. Can't decide whether vegetable or animal. Many features obviously of almost incredible primitiveness. have set all hands cutting stalactites and looking for further specimens. Additional scarred bones found, but these must wait. Having trouble with dogs. They can't endure the new specimen and would probably tear it to pieces if we didn't keep it at a distance from them. 11:30 p.m. Attention, Dyer, Peabody, Douglas. Matter of highest, I might say transcendent importance. Arkham must relay to Kingsport Head Station at once. Strange barrel growth is the Archean thing that left prints in rocks. Mills, Baudrillard and Fowler discover cluster of 13 more at underground point 40 feet from aperture. Mixed with curiously rounded and configured soapstone fragments smaller than one previously found. Star-shaped but no marks of breakage except at some of the points. Of organic specimen, 8 apparently perfect with all appendages. Have brought all to surface, leading off dogs to distance. They cannot stand the things. Give close attention to description and repeat back for accuracy. Papers must get this right. Objects are 8 foot long all over, 6 foot, 5 ridged barrel torso, 3 3/10 feet central diameter, 1 foot end diameters. Dark grey, flexible and infinitely tough. 7 foot membranous wings of same colour, found folded, spread out of furrows between ridges. Wing framework tubular or glandular, or lighter grey with orifices at wingtips. Spread wings have serrated edge. Around equator, one at central apex of each of the 5 vertical stave-like ridges, are 5 systems of light grey flexible arms or tentacles, found tightly folded to torso but expansible to maximum length of over 3 feet, like arms of primitive crinoid. Single stalk 3 inches diameter, branch after 6 inches into 5 substalks, each of which branches after 8 inches into 5 small tapering tentacles or tendrils, each giving a stalk of total 25 tentacles. At top of torso, blunt, bulbous neck of lighter grey with gill-like suggestions. Holds yellowish, 5-pointed starfish-shaped apparent head covered with 3-inch wiry cilia of various prismatic colours. Head thick and puffy, about 2 feet point to point, with 3-inch flexible yellowish tubes projecting from each point. Slit in exact centre of top, probably breathing aperture. At end of each tube is a spherical expansion where yellowish membrane rolls back on handling to reveal glassy, red-irised globe, evidently an eye. 5 slightly longer reddish tubes start from inner angles of starfish-shaped head and end in sac-like swellings of same colour, which upon pressure open to bell-shaped orifices 2 inches maximum diameter and lined with sharp white tooth-like projections. Probable mouths. All these tubes, cilia and points of starfish head found folded tightly down, tubes and points clinging to bulbous neck and torso. Flexibility surprising despite vast toughness. At bottom of torso, rough but dissimilarly functioning counterparts of head arrangements exist. Bulbous, light grey pseudo-neck without gill suggestions holds greenish 5-pointed starfish arrangement. Tough muscular arms 4 feet long and tapering from 7-inch diameter at base to about 2 5/10 a point. To each point is attached small end of greenish 5-veined membranous triangle 8 inches long and 6 wide at farther end. This is the paddle, fin or pseudo-foot which had made prints in rocks from 1,000 million to 50 or 60 million years ago. From inner angles of starfish arrangement project 2-foot reddish tubes tapering from 3 inches diameter at base to 1 at tip, orifices at tips. All these parts infinitely tough and leathery, but extremely flexible. 4-foot arms with paddles, undoubtedly used for locomotion of some sort, marine or otherwise. When moved, display suggestions of exaggerated muscularity. As found, all these projections tightly folded over pseudo-neck and end of torso, corresponding to projections at other end. Cannot yet assign positively to animal or vegetable kingdom, but odds now favour animal. Probably represents incredibly advanced evolution of radiata without loss of certain primitive features. Echinoderm resemblances unmistakable despite local contradictory evidences. Wing structure puzzles in view of probable marine habitat, but may have use in water navigation. Symmetry is curiously vegetable-like, suggesting vegetables' essential up and down structure rather than animals' fore and aft structure. Fabulously early date of evolution, preceding even simplest Archean protozoa hitherto known, baffles all conjecture as to origin. Complete specimens have such uncanny resemblance to certain creatures of primal myth that suggestion of ancient existence outside Antarctic becomes inevitable. Dyer and Peabody have read Necronomicon and seen Clark Ashton Smith's nightmare paintings based on text, and will understand when I speak of elder things supposed to have created all Earth life as jest or mistake. Students have always thought conception formed from morbid imaginative treatment of very ancient tropical radiata. Also, like prehistoric folklore things Wilmarth has spoken of, Cthulhu cult appendages, etc. Vast field of study opened. Deposits probably of late Cretaceous or early Eocene period, judging from associated specimens. Massive stalagmites deposited above them. Hard work hewing out, but toughness prevented damage. State of preservation miraculous, evidently owing to limestone action. No more found so far, but will resume search later. Job now to get 14 huge specimens to camp without dogs, which bark furiously and can't be trusted near them. With 9 men, 3 left to guard the dogs, we ought to manage the 3 sledges fairly well, though wind is bad. Must establish plane communication with McMurdo Sound and begin shipping material. But I've got to dissect one of these things before we take any rest. Wish I had a real laboratory here. Dyer better kick himself for having tried to stop my westward trip. First the world's greatest mountains, and then this. If this last isn't the high spot of the expedition, I don't know what is. We're made scientifically. Congrats Peabody on the drill that opened up the cave. Now, will Arkham please repeat description? So ends part 3 of At the Mountains of Madness. With new discoveries, the expedition has now changed its focus, looking to see what else the mountains could hold. In part 4, Lake proceeds with an autopsy, but then a storm strikes and all contact is lost. If you enjoyed the tale, it helps us if you let others know, so please click the like button and share with others that may be interested. Subscribing will let you travel with us on further adventures of the dark and terrible, with the bell notifying you as we set off. If you want to join our Eldritch Order on Discord, come visit us on Patreon. Then you can join in the discussions and even help guide the choice of stories. See the description for details of the Patreon and for a link to Canje Studios to find out about modern board games where you can create your own dark and terrible stories. Until next time, farewell. And remember, if you find your discoveries making strange connections with obscure myths, you should possibly start to reconsider the truth behind those stories.